McGruder. And Dorma McGruder is the author of One Bad Decision. One bad decision put me in hell. One good decision got me out, for which she received the Spirit of Detroit Award. Thank God for closed doors. It takes a different kind of courage to learn to thank God for closed doors. Her transformation after being devastated by all of life's closing or doors closing. Prayer is not enough. We have a part to play in our own life progress and success. She has written for publications, co-authored, and ghost-written books. Dorma has spoken at social, spiritual, and academic events and has been a guest on national radio shows such as this one, The Reading Circle with Marc Medley. She studied business administration and professional communications at Mercy College, Wayne State, and Siena Heights University. She mentors women of all ages individually to remind them of and reinforce their value. Dorma is single, and when not speaking or writing, is in her kitchen preparing dishes that have been described as nothing less than heavenly. Dorma is a 25-plus year professional working as a paralegal and freelance typist with a speed of 150 words per minute. Welcome to the Reading Circle microphones, Dorma Jean McGruder. Dorma, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I am wonderful. I wanted to ask you, who was that person you were talking about so that I could call them and listen and meet them?
I know that's right.
It's thank you so much, Mark. Thank you so much for having me this morning. I am wonderful, and yes, I do call it at 6:55 because I am of the generation that you do exactly as you're told without negotiation. So I had to. But I thank you so much for having me. And when I listen to that, especially against the backdrop of the song that just went off the air, You Don't Look Like What You've Been Through, it makes my heart sing, and it also kind of makes me very humble and very grateful that despite everything that I have been through, the operative word being through, that God did bring me through, and that is the only way I was able to make it. I had to do some things, and we'll talk about that, but yes, had God not given me the gift of prayer and the ability to reach him and know that he not only hears us but listens to us, we would not be having this conversation, and maybe you would have heard about the banana pudding or the turkey wings or the peach cobbler, and it would have been a memory. So, yeah, that's me.
I know that's right. And like I told you whenever we were talking off the air, I really don't have a set order of questions. So in your particular case, I may actually even jump ahead of what I normally start the question off with in terms of when the writing began. But there was something that I read in your bio just now that it says this whole thing about prayer, because you just brought it up. But interestingly enough, in your bio, you said, you know what, prayer is great, but prayer is not enough in terms of we got to do our part. And sometimes I don't think people understand that. And I'll tell you what I'm saying. Because you have people that will say, you know what, I've been praying for a job. I've been praying for a job. I've been praying for a job. And then the question, okay, well, have you gone on any interviews? No. I sleep late in the morning. Well, how do you expect to get a job if you're not up, beating the pavement, scouring the internet, calling people, this, that, and the other? If you're just saying a prayer and staying in the bed, you're not going to get a job. And so when I saw that part about when you said about prayer is not enough, we have a part to play, let's talk about that a little bit.
That is actually another book that I wrote, another book that I published, because I was in a place, my pastor, my late pastor, he was a prayer warrior, and my mother and my grandmother, and I learned how to pray watching other people, and I learned what prayer could do. But all of them had something in common on one level or another. They got up and did something. And I want to go with what you just said as far as job hunting. In every area of life, now we are in an era of entrepreneurship that is just exploding because jobs are so scarce in the traditional industry. And yes, Lord, help me start my business. Lord, help me do what I need to do. Help me get rich. Help me do all of those things. And as you just indicated, not only are you looking, have you done a resume, and how hard have you looked? Okay, if if that option is no longer available to you, then your next question becomes, what do I do? And thinking and praying work hand in hand. And so after you discover the doors are not opening for that, which prompted my next book, Thank God for Closed Doors, okay, what kind of business do I have? What is my ability? What can I do? What can I bring to the marketplace? And how much are you going to push the envelope on that? Did you write a business plan? No, well, I don't know how. There's very little that we cannot find out how to do on the Internet.
That's
Libraries
right.
are still open, but we are no longer bound to getting in the car and driving to the library across town. We have libraries on our wrists. We
That's
have
right.
libraries in our phones. We don't even have cell phones anymore, Mark.
That's
We
right.
have computers with cell phones in them. We have computers with television. We have televisions with cell phones in it. Okay?
No,
So
absolutely.
you're carrying the world around on your wrist. And I'm not condemning anyone. I'm talking about where I've been. Oh, Lord, I want another business. I lost my business. I want another business. What am I going to do? Well, Dorma, there are organizations that will help you. Have you called them? Have you written? Have you went to any workshops? Have you gone to any seminars? Have you tried to get someone to mentor you? What have you done? Well, my prayer changed from, Lord, help me to get rich and help me to have a business, to, Lord, show me the steps that I need to follow to get to this. Because my Bible said faith without works is dead. So if you go to a restaurant and when you walk in there, say that dinner hour is from 4 to 9, and you walk in there at 5:30 and you don't smell any food, you don't see anybody eating, well, then that's going to make me wonder, are you all intending to feed me?
Right.
All right, well, God, if you are intending to bless me with this because you said that you would, I have to show you that I am going to do what is required. So once you begin to work on your business plan, once you begin to learn and to study, once you begin to create your resume and get out there and keep looking, it may not be the door that you thought would open, but a door will open.
Absolutely.
It may not be the first class seat to Delta Airlines, and you may end up sitting in the back on the Greyhound bus, but you may be sitting next to someone who has your answer, your connection, your encouragement, whatever you need. But you've got to get out there and make the effort. I don't know your whole story, but I am quite sure that Marc Medley did not get on the air and stay on the air for 18 years praying, Lord bless me, Lord help me. You had to get up and do something.
Absolutely.
That is why prayer is not enough. We have to start there, but it's not enough.
Absolutely. And I could not agree with you more. And again, you have to put it out there. And yes, you have to let God know what it is on. As a matter of fact, you don't even have, he knows already, but he still likes to hear it from us. And then, like you said, you got to get up and do the work. It's work without faith is dead and vice versa. Faith without works is dead also. You got to have the combination of both. And some people just don't understand. They honestly think like God is this cosmic Santa Claus that all they got to do is sit there and wish for it and ask for it, and it's just going to drop in their laps. And it just does not work that way.
Well, let's go to the Bible for a hot minute. The woman with the issue of blood.
Right.
She had gone to all of the doctors, had spent all of her money, and 12 years in this condition. And she was dying. And she didn't know what else to do. She had done all that she could, but she heard Jesus was going to be over that way. She heard it. And so we tend to glamorize it and say, oh, she touched the hem of his garment. First of all, she was a woman with an affliction, and she was looked down upon in society.
Correct.
And she hears Jesus is coming back, and so she gets down on her knees and she's crawling into a moving group of people.
Correct.
Like men. She's crawling into a moving group of men. Let me be quiet.
No. You're absolutely right. Because at that time, it's particularly, and much hasn't changed in some respects. You're absolutely right. The females were not respected, and certainly not one with a disease.
No. She couldn't go anywhere. She couldn't be around her family.
Right.
And she's so crawling on the ground, being stepped on and stomped on and probably kicked by these men who may or may not know what's wrong with her, but all they know is she's a woman. But all she knows is she has to get to Jesus. And she says in her spirit, when you read it in the original Greek, if I could just touch the hem of his garment,
Right.
she's determined. I don't have to touch you. You don't have to stop service. We don't have to lift an offering. We don't have to have a prayer line. If I can just touch what's touching you, okay, I don't have to turn around 3 times and all. If I can touch what's touching you, I will be made well. When you talk about writing,
Right.
I always wanted to write a book ever since I was a little girl. But and I always wrote.
And see, now you're going down the road where I generally start the interview, and that's kind of like, where did the writing begin? But you're absolutely right with the woman with the hem of garment. She just kept pressing her way, even though it had been 12 years in the making. Because see, we're, like you were talking about technology, we're in a microwave society now. We want it now. We want it this instant, and I, myself included.
and let me go somewhere else. Go to Moses and the children of Israel when they were facing the Red Sea. Go to the woman whose husband had died.
Right.
They were coming to take her sons and sell them in slavery. Both of these individuals were asked the same question. What do you have
Correct.
in your hand?
That's right.
What do you have in your house? What are you working with? Mark, what are you working with? Dorma, what do you have? Well, I've been laid off. I've been no job prospect. Well, I can type 150 words a minute.
That's right.
But with technology, the traditional doors were closed. But as I kept putting it out there, and I love to write, and I'm writing books for other people, so that was how it was born. So when people, you type that fast, yes. So now I have people, I don't go to a, quote, job, but now I have people who will call me, I heard you speak. I saw you at a banquet. I heard you talk about, how can I get this to you?
Right.
I've got 50 pages. You can email it to me. I can't? Yes. You can take a picture of it with your phone and send it to me.
That's right.
Just get it.
That's right.
And that's what we do. I have people who call me and will give me a 15-minute voicemail message of what they want typed. I type it and send it back.
And
they pay me, and we're done.
And see,
so I worked with what I had in my hand.
That's absolutely right. And that was another point, and I'm glad you brought that up, because see, we working with each other, that's for sure. That was another point in your bio that caught my eye, and I'll tell you why. Whenever I graduated undergrad, my undergrad degree was business administration. So I just knew, and I had always been, because my aunt worked for AT&T, and I'd always said, people ask, what are you going to do? And I was just saying for the fun of it, I'm going to work for AT&T. That's why our words have power. This I know. So I was just saying, when people would ask me, what are you going to do when you graduate? I said, I'm going to work for AT&T. Had no idea that really I was going to do that. I was just saying it. But whenever we had our job fair and the recruiter from AT&T came around, I just knew I was all that in a bag of chips. I got my degree in business administration. I'm going to be in management. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I laughed at your typing piece because the first thing that the recruiter said was, you can type? And I said, yes. Mm-hmm. And I had a lot of speed as well. He says, well, I tell you what, and this is going back to what you were just saying about you never know. He said, I tell you what, we don't have any management positions open at the moment, but would you be willing to come in non-management as a secretary? Now, this is going back to 1983, 1984. There weren't many male secretaries at that time.
No, there weren't. Even fewer who looked like us. Yeah.
Right, exactly. That's exactly. That's another element in there. So I said, yeah, okay, sure. That's what got my foot in the door. Now, within a year and a half, because I went in there and I was very good at what I did ultimately get promoted into management. But my foot in the door of getting into one of the largest companies in the world at that time was the ability to type.
Okay, now let's put a pin right there. Let's go to church and put a pin right there. You said something that is equally important, that, okay, prayer is not enough. Work with what's in your hand. And you said that you were very good at what you did. When you get there, Ecclesiastes, I think 9 and 10 or 10 and 9, somewhere in there, it says, do your best. Give all do your best with all your might, okay? When you get to that place, in fact, before you get to that place, you do everything with excellence because that is what gets rewarded.
Correct.
People cannot ignore. They can say, I made an apple cobbler for someone earlier this week who had just gotten out of the hospital. She said, Dorma, it was so pretty, I didn't even want to cut it. Because excellent. See, and that's how pretty I want it to be. Yeah, I didn't
absolutely.
Want to but I want it to be with my book covers and with my typing and with my writing, when I am going before a crowd to speak, whether it is a crowd of 1 or 100,000, I want to give my
correct.
Best. And my prayer is, Lord, help me to say what you want me.
That's right.
I don't. So even if I have stepped to the podium or to the stage with notes, and God has told me at that moment, turn the notes over, I'm coming a different way. And I'm still talking about domestic abuse and children learning and low self-esteem and conquering suicide. My next book is Secret Bleeding, talking about the open wounds that we have from childhood. Yet, I'm able to be flexible enough to do what God said do, but I'm giving my best. And that is something that we must do. I don't remember who it was. I know the first one I heard say it was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but someone else may have said it before him. If you are a street sweeper,
that's right.
The streets so clean that they shine, that the angels in heaven have to stop and say, look at that beautiful street.
I know that's right.
That Mark swept, that Dorma swept. When people read my books, they say, I felt like I was there. That's what I wanted you to do.
Absolutely.
I can on CD and MP3. I've got about 75 prayers on CD and on MP3. Okay. And if Mark orders the prayer Mark is visiting someone in the hospital, and that person has cancer. So Mark goes and downloads the prayer and downloads the scriptures for prayer for cancer, and that person has it on their phone or iPad or whatever device they have. Well, it takes me about a week to do each one. Why does it take so long? Because it has to be done with excellence. Not that because I don't know how far they're going. And you know what God rewards? We use that scripture, given it shall be given to you, good measure pressed down and shaken together and running over, shall men give into your bosom, and you reap what you sow. We use that for money. That applies to life.
Right.
I give 100% to my business will give 100% to me. If I give 5% to my business will give me 5%. So the only way that you rose in AT&T, it wasn't because you were a typist. It wasn't because you were a secretary. It wasn't because you were an African-American man. It wasn't because you dressed well, which I'm sure you did.
Correct.
Looking at your picture and your fraternity, bless your heart. But you delivered excellence.
That's correct. I mean, it was to the point wherein, because I was actually, they had at that time, they're like floater secretaries, wherein if a secretary was out, we had a bank of us who would now go in and fill in. We were substitutes.
That was very popular.
We were like in the pool. And it got to the point where folks were requesting the black male substitute. We want that guy. And that word had got around. This was down in Baskin Ridge, New Jersey. That was where our headquarters was. And they were, we want the guy. And then it got to the point where one district manager says, I want to keep him as my secretary for good. I'm going to take him out of the floater pool, and he's going to be my secretary. And then when I got like a year and a half later, got noticed by another district manager that says, he's wasting his talent there. I'm pulling him up. And that's, but see, back to the point is that all started from, because I'm thinking that's where I was going to go when I came straight out of school. But that was my route through, and God's way of showing me a few different things that he's shown me over the years in different ways. So,
well, look at Joseph.
Right.
He started, he was with his brothers, and he went from the field to the pit, to the palace,
correct,
to prison, back to the prison, and then he ended up with, so we don't know the route that God is going to take us. And I've been through, the operative word being through, so much. But I've been very, very blessed. I don't believe in luck. I've been very blessed. I didn't have to deal with cancer, with paralysis, with diabetes, with all of these things. But I know what it's like to be depressed to the point where I could not get out of the bed. All I could do was roll out of the bed and crawl into the living room just to say I got out of bed that day.
Right.
I know what that's like. And I know what it's like to wish nighttime would come so I could try and go to sleep because I couldn't face another day. I know what that's like. And I also know what it's like when you stop and say, okay, you know what, this is enough. I got to take a step somewhere, and I have to use what I have in my hand. And I love what Nehemiah said, Lord, strengthen my hands. And when if may not have had the chance to see it, but on my website and on my Amazon page, there's a video of me at the African American Museum in Detroit, and I was ready to die. I couldn't take it anymore. I had my pain pills on the table, and but I prayed. I said, God, come on, you're bigger than this, and I'm better than this. Help me.
Right.
Help me.
Right.
Okay?
And see, and that even that is an interesting point. I'm going to put a pin there, as you were talking about earlier, because my pastor was just preaching about that last week or week before last, about us being real with God in terms of our prayers. In other words, we should be able to speak to him the same way we would speak to, like me and you are talking right now. In other words, we try to get all fancy with his, our Father who art in heaven, we come to you bloody bound and bowed knee and da da da. God is not looking for that. And what I just heard you say was, help me.
And you know what I told him? You know what else I told him? I said, Lord, because see, 2 weeks into that relationship, God told me to get out because he was going to strip me and leave me with nothing. And that's exactly what happened. But I was hard-headed. And when I prayed, I bared my soul. I tore my soul up.
Right.
I said, God, I have sinned. I was wrong. I lived with this man. I did everything you told me not to do. But I'm sorry, and I can't take it back. Okay? But I know, and being brutally honest, that I know that I did something right. I fed somebody. I know I did something right.
Right.
And so, like Nehemiah said, God, remember me for my good. Can you take that little bit and come and see about me
I
now?
know that's right.
Okay? I've not been perfect. You're the only one who is perfect, and they didn't treat you too good when you were down here. So I'm not looking for perfection.
Right.
But, Lord, help me. Forgive me for what I've done and help me to move forward. And now other people, not only women, but men, young people. I've been invited to a church in the northern part of Michigan to talk about domestic violence, to address. My audience is going to be the women, but they want me to have 3 different sessions. One for the women, one for the youth, and one for the men.
Well, that's because, yes, men can be domestically abused as well. It's just not as prominent or prevalent.
Yes, they want me to talk about them being victims, but they also want me to talk to them about what they may be doing that is
correct,
violence, that they don't know is domestic violence.
Correct.
Because I was never hit. He beat me, kicked me, tortured me, left me for dead, and he never touched me. I didn't know I was battered. And so it's powerful to recognize God will help us. But if I hadn't prayed that prayer, if I hadn't tried, okay, it couldn't have happened. And it's such a blessing to know that we have a God who not only hears, you are in a studio. And when I have been in a studio, you have to have headphones on because of all of the noise that you hear around you. But you are only supposed to listen to what is pertinent at that moment. And so God listens to, he's listening to me, he's listening to us, he's listening to that child on the south side of Chicago, he's listening to those families grieving down in Kentucky, he's listening to those people grieving in Washington, D.C., he's listening to those who are getting dressed for a wedding today, he's listening to each of us. And he's listening to us when we pray out of desperation because you don't have a job, you don't have your business, car has been repossessed. He's listening to you. And if you be quiet and give him equal time, he will tell you what to do. He's not going to tell you, remember when we were in school? I don't know what they do in school now. Remember when we were in school? Okay, 1 + 1 = 2. And remember when we got to the long division and multiplication mark? What did our teachers tell us? Show your work.
That's right.
Okay? Well, God doesn't always show his work. But we have to trust him for the
correct. That's absolutely right. Now, listening audience, if you've just joined me, and I truly hope you've been with me since 6, and certainly, if not 6, since 7, my guest this morning is Dorma Jean McGruder, and she is the author of One Bad Decision. And her tagline says, "One bad decision put me in hell. One good decision got me out." And I'm going to read something from Les Brown. Les Brown says, "Dorma has amazed me since the first day I met her almost 30 years ago. Her diligence and commitment to me and my business made the difference in my success. I was surprised and saddened to know she was in an abusive relationship. But she used her setback as a setup for her comeback, and I am not surprised that she has won. You must read this book. It will change your life." And that was from Les Brown, international motivational speaker. And we were talking a couple of minutes ago about the domestic abuse, and you said something that was key that, listening audience, you need to understand. In order to be abused does not necessarily mean you have to be physically touched. There's emotional abuse, there's physical abuse, there's psychological abuse, mental abuse, verbal abuse, sexual abuse. There's all, I mean, that verbal abuse sometimes can be even more powerful than the physical abuse. Because, I mean, again, going biblically, the power of that tongue, there's life and death in it. And so the verbal abuse sometimes can be worse than the physical. And as you were just saying, Dorma, like, I didn't even realize I was in an abusive relationship because I wasn't hit.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about that.
He, like I said, it was verbal, and I told him once he was angry with me because I had no more money to give him, and the financial abuse was part of my abuse. Now, this man was not living with me. He was kind of, but he was living in multiple places with multiple people. And another pin. We're going to run out of pins before our time is up. But it's important to know that I thought battered women and women in abusive relationships were only poor women who were on welfare and women who were uneducated and women who were quote saved Christian women in church could not be abused and could. Well, I was not a missionary because that wasn't my calling, but I was very active in church. I was doing a lot of speaking, teaching Sunday school, helping pastors get their churches organized and set up because I did that very well. And here I am living in shame with this man, and he was working, and he when a person gets your mind, they've got you. And so it started with my daughter got out of juvenile and she needs a place to live, and so I need $500. Oh, here, because I'm trying to buy him and trying to make him feel important. And when I knew anything, I lost a very successful business. You're talking about the late 80s, early 90s. Yeah, well, my average week was about $3,000 a week. That was nothing. That's good now.
I know that's right.
And so I'm giving him my money. I had no more money to give. He came over to quote make love to me. It was rape because I didn't want him anymore. He would come over to get money, and that was it, and assault me and then leave. And he comes over, and I didn't have any money, and I was scared of it. So people say, well, how could you do that? See, until a person has been there, I don't criticize and I don't judge people anymore because I've been there. So you don't know what it took for me to get there, and you don't know how hard I tried to get out. And I was afraid of him because he kept threatening me with veiled threats. And this particular conversation, you don't have any money to give me, you're not having sex with me anymore, and I'm thinking never did, but okay. And he said, I should just beat you, but I just don't have time. I said, I wish you would, because if you beat me, those scars would heal. What you say to me and what you have done to me will be with me for the rest of my life. And he just turned and walked out.
Wow.
Well, that was a very pivotal point for me because I recognized it wasn't going to get any better. And I one of the reasons I want to address young women, Mark, is because if I can let my sisters, no matter what race, what ethnicity, what background you come from, rich or poor, it doesn't matter. If we can let them know, if you know your value, not your cost, you will not allow someone to do that to you. I am a strong advocate I'm a fierce advocate of being supportive of your partner. But when you are doing it all, that's not good. And when you're doing it because you're scared or because you feel obligated, no. If you're saying that you need money for your child and you're working, then you probably need to do that, because I have a business to run and I have things that I have to do. People should not, when you're talking about this childish behavior, even with adults, checking cell phones. Why I don't have time for that, because I have to work on this contract over here. I have 3 appointments today, Mark, scheduled for people with ghostwriting books. I really don't have time to check and see where you are or who you're doing or what you're doing or who you're with, okay? And so I had to learn that. But I want my young sisters to know, love you, and I want my young brothers to know, love you. If we put as much in our heads as we put on our heads, we would be so much further ahead.
I know that's right.
Yes. Put as much in your heart about you, about loving you. Look at creation. What was the very first thing that God created? Heaven, his dwelling place. He got him straight first. Go to the parable of the man on the Jericho Road. Why was that man able to take him to a hotel and get him situated? He had money. He paid for his first couple of nights. He had good credit because he told the innkeeper, I'll take care of the rest of the bill when I come back. He had taken care of his needs first. So we have to meet our needs first. And I want my sisters to know, you are a princess. You are a queen. God loves you. He crowned creation with you. He spoke everything into existence. But he created the man, and he made the woman, and he made us last. And when you get dressed, you're a Greek. So when you all get dressed, what is the last thing you put on before you leave out of the house? Your hat.
Absolutely.
Your crown. That's it. And that's what God did with us. And I lost all of that because I was desperate, and I believed that I absolutely had to have this man, not a man, this man.
Yeah, and you know, and see, it's interesting listening to you and reading the back of the book and everything, because I have like one of my favorite, if not my, she is my favorite on my sister, on my mother's side, because she only had one sister, so it got to be. But in any event, we suspect, right? I mean, she only had one sister, so it's got to be the favorite on her side. So, but in any event, we've always kind of suspected that something like that is going on there. And like you said, you can't judge because if you're not in the situation, but it is hard to watch. It is hard to watch whenever you can kind of see the signs that's going on there, and there's not a whole lot you can do. And like you said, you don't have to be beat. You don't have to be hit physically, but the words alone can do it.
The words alone, and you, when you know who you are, you won't allow it. Tina Turner, she married her partner after 30 years, and she felt comfortable and safe in the relationship, but she really wasn't overly enthused about getting married again.
Right.
And those of us who know that story know why. But she said that she married because she recognized he had been faithful to her, she had been faithful to him, but if anything happened to her, he would have no say-so in her end-of-life choices because he was not her husband.
Right.
And so that is what prompted her to go ahead and do it. Let's do it out of love and whatever your reasons are. But when you don't know, this is when we have to collectively, now prayer may not be enough,
right,
but prayer can get the ball rolling. Prayer can get it started. And if you suspect something like that is going on with this wonderful woman, encourage her. Don't ask her questions. But when you can, remind her how special and how priceless she is. And you don't have to say, you have to learn to use buzzwords.
right,
It's like the abuser uses buzzwords. Instead of saying, you don't deserve this and you're better than this, remind her, you deserve life's best. God loves you, and so do I. You are a wonderful woman. Well, you know what? Eventually that soaks in.
Well, you know what? I'm going to send that text exactly as you just said it. I'm going to send that text to her. And I might have to have you repeat it so I can say it. So I might have to send that text to her.
I'll email it to you. It's so important. And we need that every day. I still have moments where I have more, my vision board, I have pictures.
Oh, vision board. We'll be talking for another 2 hours. You talking vision board, but go ahead.
But I have a lot of words and statements on my vision board. I have a lot of things on my vision board that people have said about me and that I really believe. Okay, Dorma, you are 28 karat gold. And it doesn't matter okay, I'm going to give you another one. And you don't have to give me any ties on this one, okay?
Well, hold on a second. Give me the one you just gave me. You say what now? How did you say it? It was, give me the one because I'm getting ready to type it in just as you say it.
You are beautiful. You are valuable.
Hold on. You are beautiful. You are beautiful.
You are valuable.
Beautiful. Okay, wait. Now, I would talk it in, but I'm on the air. You are valuable. You are valuable. Okay.
You deserve God's best.
You deserve God's best. See, this is an interactive show here, folks. You deserve. So I'm literally texting this as Dorma's telling me.
You are God's queen. You are God's queen.
You are God's queen. You are God's queen. And she gonna look at that and wonder what the heck got Mark. What happened to Mark? But she knows I try to encourage her all the time in different ways. But she's gonna see this one and it's probably gonna be cryptic, but good. Let it be cryptic. You are God's queen.
And you deserve life's best.
You deserve life's best. You deserve. See, you know what's messing me up is the spell check. It keeps trying to spell its own thing. You deserve God's best. All right.
I just emailed it to you.
All right, so I got it in there now. So here we go. You are beautiful. You are valuable. You deserve God's best. You are God's queen. You deserve God's best. All right, so I'm getting ready to hit the little arrow button, and off it goes. It just went. And funny enough, I'm sitting here looking at Facebook as well, and my cousin has a post on there that said, when somebody downplays everything you do, take notice. They don't appreciate you.
They don't appreciate you. And you know something? When people can't control you,
right.
I've lived it. When people can't control you, they try to discredit you.
Right.
And when they can't discredit you, the next thing is to destroy you.
Right.
And if they can't destroy you, the cycle starts all over again. They attack you. But I'm going to give you another one.
Uh-oh.
I'm going to give you another one. I'm going to personalize it.
Uh-huh.
And I'm going to use my name in lieu of your aunt's name because we don't want to violate her privacy. But she can call me. I'm serious. She can call me or email me if you think it'll help. That's not a problem. That's on you. What Dorma knows about Dorma is far more important than what the rest of the world thinks about Dorma.
Is far more important than what some of these
anybody else.
What Dorma knows about Dorma is far more important than what anybody else
thinks
about Dorma. See, some of these I might put on Twitter because I usually put quotes on it while we're on the show. I usually put it out there on Twitter as well as quotes, as the guest is saying as we're talking. Because this is very important because a lot of times whenever you start getting into abusive relationships, it really is about self-esteem. And sometimes you can go into it with very good self-esteem and it winds up getting beat down to the point where you don't even know who you are. That's why this one is really good. What Dorma knows about Dorma is far more important than anyone else thinks.
Go to our 44th president.
Oh, boy.
What he knew about him was far more important than what the rest of the world thought about him. Now, let's go to truth versus fact, okay? Facts can be debated. Truth cannot, all right? Lawsuits are
correct.
And lost on truth. Lawsuits are won and lost based on who has the best attorney. All right. Fact. We have a glass of water in front of us. Dorma says the glass is half full. Mark says the glass is half empty. We can debate that all day long. We can go through 2 banana puddings, a pot of oxtail soup, some turkey wings, and an apple cobbler. And we will never be done debating that.
Correct.
Those are facts. But the truth is, there is water in that glass.
That's right.
You can't debate that. There is water in that glass. So my truth valuable. I'm priceless. That I could get up before a crowd of 10,000 people with no preparation. I walked into a church in the middle of 3,000 people there, and we're waiting on the speaker. The pastor looks in the back. Oh, Sister McGruder said, Dorma, come on up. She can be the speaker tonight. I said, Lord have mercy. I got up there. I said, Dad, praise the Lord, everybody. And I'm not a preacher. I'm not a preacher.
Right.
Know that. I am a speaker / teacher. I'm glad they taped it because I wouldn't remember what I said because I was just praying and said, Lord, use me.
Right.
And the speaker never did come, and there wasn't an accident. The speaker got the date wrong.
Right.
So it worked out that way. But we have, and there were people who, I heard the remarks on my way up there. She ain't gonna know what to say. She good, but she ain't that good. Can't nobody. But I knew that this is my gift.
Right.
That God gave me.
Absolutely.
Okay? So what we know is far more important than what everybody else thinks. And I began to reflect. I said, what I know, when I got laid off, when the next book, Thank God for Closed Doors, when that book was birthed, it was birthed because I had been laid off, Boehner cut unemployment early, car was repossessed, 6 months behind in rent, which is a miracle in itself because most people evict you after 30 or 40 days, and nothing was breaking. Because I did go to school, but I didn't finish, and that's why I stress to everybody, we all went to college, we finished, because they were telling me, okay, you could see we're 20 years out now. And while I was a valuable commodity back then, and you were, it's not so now. So, okay, you can type 150 words a minute, but AT&T, DTE, the water company, we can't hire you because you don't have a degree.
Right.
Okay? So I had to work with, wait a minute, hold it. Look at what you know. Okay, you know that you are an excellent communicator. You know that you can sit down and someone can give you their title and their content, and you can create a 50-page book
right.
in a couple of days if need be. Okay, so what you know is what's important. Stop looking at what people think. I had someone tell me who had to come back and apologize. Nobody's going to buy prayers from you. People know how to pray for themselves. But I knew what God called me to do. And it wasn't 2 months before I got a phone call, and I heard all this sniffing on the phone, and I said, hello, and I knew the number. My daughter is sick. Can you come and pray and bring some of your prayers for us? I didn't say I told you so. I didn't say anything. I went, and I served. I took communion, and I served. And we prayed, and I served. But you can't let what people say distract you and pull you away from your purpose. How many people, Mark, told you that you couldn't start radio, that you can't continue radio, that you can't do this format? And look at what God is doing.
Absolutely.
Every single day, every single week. Look at what God is doing.
Absolutely.
We've got to step out of what other people think. Step away from that. When Peter got out of the ship, when Peter got out of the boat and started walking on the water, I wasn't there. I suspect you weren't either. What's the bet that all of those disciples, man, what you doing?
That's right. That's right.
Peter, come back here. While he's walking away, they're telling him to come back and don't. And he's doing what he wanted to do because he looked at Jesus. And
right.
He bid me come. And I submit to every listener, y'all can call, write, email, fax, text, come over for banana pudding if you wish. If that's what you want to do, you tell Jesus, Lord, if this is you bid me come, Jesus said come, and Peter went. And it wasn't until he started looking around at the conditions that he began to sink. Now, we get mad at Peter because we say, oh, he sank. How many of us would have even said, Lord, if it's you bid me come? And then got out of the boat, walked on the water. He got all the way to Jesus, and then Jesus pulled him up, which means he had walked all the way to where he was. He got right in front of him. Jesus didn't have to swim to him. And then we lose sight of this fact, this truth, rather, that they walked back to the ship, got in the boat, and that's when the storm stopped. You know what
right.
that taught me, Mark? My storms are not stopping until I accomplish what God gives me to do. And he's given me the ability to do it as long as I pray, walk, move, and keep my hand in his hand. He and Jesus walked on the water together. God will walk with you on top of whatever is trying to destroy you, whether it is an abusive relationship, a financial crisis, an emotional crisis. If you were talking about how it goes at all levels, and I know I'm shifting gears a lot, but, let your listeners know I haven't had Pepsi this morning.
I haven't had it. Wow.
So, a sister's doing what she can with what she has. But you were talking corporate America. I'm on the elevator many years ago, and this lady gets on, and you can see her wealth. She's got very tasteful jewelry, a very expensive black suede suit, very nicely, her hair done and everything. And a younger woman gets on with her, and the older lady is crying. And a couple of floors down, a man gets on with this mink coat that almost fills the elevator. And I'm saying, oh, Jesus, can I have one of those? And so the older woman is crying, and then she starts throwing up, and I smell alcohol. And they're looking at me, and I'm just backing up in the back of the elevator. And he said, okay, we're going to take you home. She says, no, don't take me home. Get me a hotel room. And he said, you've got this gorgeous home on Lakeshore Drive, which is the premier piece of real estate in Detroit.
Right.
Right on the lake. What do you mean you don't want to go home? She said, if I go home, he's going to beat me again. I've met her 2 weeks later. To this day, she's probably dead by now because she was old then. But that woman never knew who I was because her back was to me.
Right.
I met her 2 weeks later at our law firm's Christmas party. She was a senior partner, a named partner at that firm 2 floors above us. Now, let's go back to the 80s, Mark. Let's go back. If she was a named partner,
right,
she was pulling 7 figures back then.
Right.
They have offices. I'm not going to say the name. They still have offices in 8 states. And they had them in 12 states back then. She was pulling 7 figures back.
But see, that just goes forth to show that it doesn't matter about the title or the position or the job. Domestic violence and domestic abuse cuts across stratas. Like you said, it's not just welfare folks or poor folks or folks in poverty. It goes all the way up the line.
It goes all the way up. And they couldn't, and he couldn't, I suspect, looking back, he couldn't beat me because I was very well known. And I had some pretty high-profile clients, prominent pastors, prominent officials, prominent politicians who were my regular clients. So they would have known something, and they knew something was wrong, and they tried to talk to me, and that's why I'm telling you, with your aunt, and they were telling me, you got to get out of this, you got to get out of this, I can help you. But I was scared of him, so we don't know what she's dealing with. But keep encouraging her, keep loving her. All you have to do, Mark, is keep reminding her of who she is. And one day she's going to wake up. And it doesn't matter what you leave. It matters where you end up.
Correct.
Peter ended up walking out, getting out, demonstrated more faith than any number of other people, more faith than Abraham, because Abraham stayed on dry land. Peter got out on the water in the storm. What a blessing, what a wonderful testimony for us. We have to get out of our boat and get into the storm. I walked into the storm of writing. When I first brought the first 3 paragraphs of my book to my family, my mother and my sisters, and I read it to them, I thought they would be excited because they knew that I loved to write, and I'm writing about this relationship. They laughed at me. You won't be able to write a book. Friends laughed at me. You won't be able to write a book. I know you can write, but you can't write that good. Not that well, that good. And if you write it, nobody. Well, yeah, and these were the people that I just knew were in my cheering section.
Not that well, that good. A message received. Message received. That's right.
And that did not take place. And so I kept on writing. Well, and then a couple of times I got it finished, and the computer died, and I thought I'd lost it, and then I had to go back, and we had those discs back then, and just one thing after another. Well, fast forward, psychologists ordered some. And one psychologist in particular, the 12 that she purchased for her patients, which I had no clue, 7 of them were getting ready to commit suicide, and of those 7, 3 were going to kill their husbands and their children and themselves.
Wow.
And they stayed up all night, read the book, and said, if Dorma can survive this, I can survive. Some of them went to counseling and saved the marriage. Some of them left. Some of them left the state with their kids and just took what they could take in the car. And when she called me to tell me about it, again, very prominent, well-to-do psychologist in the Michigan suburbs area, she said, you did not save 12 women. You saved, don't cry, you saved 12 mothers, 12 daughters, 12 doctors. Some of them have gone on to be attorneys and teachers and so much. These are the lives that you have saved.
But see, that's what the beauty of a book is, and the speaking for that matter, is it's exponential. In other words, we never know when you've touched one how many other lives spun off of that one that you touched. So they're absolutely right.
Remember when we were kids, when it was safe, when it was fun,
right?
And we would go to the park and we would throw rocks in the water just to watch the ripples.
Right.
Books are like ripples. There are two characteristics of ripples that can never be debated. They can be debated, but I think that they're truth, not fact. One is that you can't count the ripples because they happen so fast.
Right.
And they keep going after they're out of your eyesight. And two, you never know how far they go because each one connects to another and to another and to another. And looking back on the things that happened to me with the relationship, with my job situation, with no money, sometimes down to almost no food. And somebody would call me, and my godmother called me one morning, and she said, what are you doing today? I said, well, I'm cleaning up around the house, and I'm doing some writing. Okay, well, come by my house about 3 o'clock. I said, okay. And I was down to peanut butter jelly and a couple of chicken breasts. Okay. But I didn't say anything. I told God. There was no need to tell people. I told God about it. Plus, I was embarrassed. There's no need to sugarcoat it. I was saying. And it's not anybody's fault. I just didn't have any money. I was out of everything. When I got to her house, she said, here, take this and open it when you get home. I said, okay. I opened it up. Her son, who lives on the Western Seaboard, she said, I'm splitting with you. I said, okay. I opened it up. Crab cakes, shrimp, lobster tails, salmon. I mean, you name it, it was in there. Okay? So God made a way. But to get back to my earlier point, he will do whatever we allow him to do. But looking back, Mark, I didn't like any of those things. And I wouldn't have chosen to go through any of that. But when I look back on it again with that third eye, I wouldn't change it.
Right.
I wouldn't change it.
That's
I wouldn't
absolutely
do it,
right.
but I would not change it because I've helped some people and I've gotten better. And God has helped me to do better to help people and helped me to do better to help me because I've helped other people write their books. I've been able, a lady called me to go to a suburb to come and pray for her. And when I got there, she was comatose. She didn't call me. Her children called me. And so I went in and I prayed. And I didn't want to disturb her. I didn't know. I stood at the foot of the bed and I prayed. That was all I could do. And I left out. And about 3 weeks later, I was at a mutual friend's house. His husband had died. And I opened the door. And she said, hi, are you Dorma? I said, yes. I said, sure, come on in. And, I'm the hostess that night. I brought the banana pudding. And she said, you don't know me. I said, no, I really don't. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. She said, I'm Elaine. I said, okay. I said, well, I only know one Elaine. And she said, that's me. I felt your presence. God opened my eyes a little bit. And I saw you standing at the foot of my bed. And I heard you pray. You prayed very softly. And God gave me the strength to hold on to that prayer. And you anointed my bed. And you anointed my feet just a little bit. And here I am.
Well, I tell you, in terms of, because it's 8 o'clock, I need to change over to the 8 o'clock hour, but we're going to continue on to the discussion. No, because you said something there that I'm going to come back on whenever I'm done with the weather and all that kind of stuff, and that is the whole notion of having gone what you've gone through and the purpose, and then when you're going through it, you can't see it until after it. And I want to talk about what was it like for you getting your experience down on paper, because many of my guest authors talk about how cathartic it is for them to be able to get it down on paper. So hold on to those thoughts. Well, I'm going to flip over into the 8 o'clock hour, and then we're going to continue with our discussion.
Okay.
All righty.
WPSC. 7 FM. Online. WPNS.org, a tune-in radio station, part of the William Patterson Broadcast Network.
Broadcasting live from Hobart Hall in Wayne, New Jersey. This is the innovative.
I think they're really unique.
The fearless.
They have awesome variety.
The kick-ass.
I love Brave New Radio.
The sensational.
I've never heard anything like it.
This is the one and only Brave New Radio.
Here's your North Jersey weather report.
All right, if you weren't awake, I bet you woke up whenever we had to change over when that loud. I hate it when it does that. I put it up too loud. But in any event, we got to do the weather. And it looked like we're at about 44 degrees with showers out there. It's going to be raining. Looks like most of the day. 42 degrees as a low, and then 52 degrees as a high on tomorrow. 44 degrees as a low, partly cloudy. And then on Monday, 53 degrees as a high, 38 degrees as a low with AM showers. And then on Tuesday, 57 degrees as a high, 45 degrees as a low, sunny. And then rounding out the forecast on Wednesday, mostly sunny, 63 degrees as a high, 54 degrees as a low. Looks like I lost Dorma. I need her to call me back so we can continue on with our interview. I hope she didn't think it was over. I need her to get back on the line so that we can continue our interview. But if you haven't been listening, had a wonderful time speaking with her in this first hour, and we're going to continue on. And what I was telling her was, you know, whenever she gets back on, if we didn't drop connection, I don't know where she went, but it went out. The phone went out, so I got to wait for her to call me back. But if you listen to her story, in terms of, we're talking about domestic abuse, domestic violence, because it sounds like that's what her book, I haven't had a chance to read the book from page 1 to the end, but the title of the book is One Bad Decision. And it was one bad decision put me in hell, one good decision got me out. So when she calls back, we'll continue with that. I hope she don't think that, you know, it was over. I was just telling her I needed to change over. But, or either something went wrong with the phones. I don't know. But in any event, stay there. Don't you dare move. All right. There we go. We're having a good time here. There we go. Dorma will resume in a minute. It threw off the recording device whenever that happens, so I got to get everything back together, so hang on.
Okay.
All right, I got everything back in order. Whenever the phone dropped, I paused the recorder, and then when I went back to recorder, it threw it off, so I had to start another section of it. So I'm gonna have to splice those sections whenever I edit it, but not a big deal at all. In any No, not a problem. So right before I shared the weather and all that stuff with folks, What I said was, in terms of putting your experiences down on paper, many times I have guests that have done what you've done. They've captured the experience on paper, and they always share with how cathartic it was and how they were able to actually release and for it to feel better. But before you even get into that, you were talking about how you've been able to help so many people. And what I was saying was, a lot of times when we go through things, as you were saying, the operative word being through, that we didn't quit, that you went through, sometimes it's so that once we get through, we can actually go out now and help somebody else. And I'll give an example really quickly. When I was in the military, I went through basic training, and some of the stuff that the drill sergeants had us doing just made absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. For the 6 weeks that we were in the training, I was kind of like, I don't understand why my underwear have to be folded in 6 inches and my socks have to be folded here, and they're hollering and yelling at us, and we have to do this quick. But then after I got out, it dawned on me that if we ever were in a wartime situation, things would be going so fast and so furious and so crazy that you better be able to hold your composure, know who you're listening to, because they would play mind games with us, throw their voice. One drill sergeant would throw their voice to see if the other troop responded to his. They were playing all kinds of games, but if we were truly in a wartime setting, we would have to be able to hold our own in that. And I share that story to say, a lot of times when we go through something, we can't see why we're going through it until we're out of it, and now we're able to share our story, and it helps someone else. Talk a little bit about that and how the whole process of writing, what it did for you.
You're absolutely right. We talked about the psychologist, and when I was presenting my book at the Charles H. Wright Museum in Detroit, a gentleman walked up to me, and he said, "May I apologize to you?" I said, "Okay, you need to tell me why." He said, "Because what he was doing to you is how I have been treating my wife and my daughter, and I'm going to stop, and I'm asking you to forgive me, and I'm going to go home and ask them to forgive me." Had I not had the courage to get up on that stage and tell the truth, tell my story, that man may never have been able to do that. My writing process, I had lost sight of who I was. Dorma's knowledge of who she was gone. I had been stripped of all of that, because when a person, and I want your audience to pay close attention to this, and Mark, you can validate this. What branch of service were you in?
I was in Air Force.
Okay. And they taught you certain things a certain way.
Correct.
They had to change your mindset. They had to change your mindset. They had to change your mindset. They had to change how you thought. When a person gets your mind, they've got you.
Correct.
Whether it's the military, politics, Hitler, Jim Jones, Guyana, Dorma McGruder. When they get your mind, they've got you. And he had my mind. And I stopped loving me. I wasn't me. And I said, no, this isn't right. This isn't right. And I couldn't take anymore. Okay, I believed I was worthless. I believed I had lost my value. I believed nobody cared. I believed that I was embarrassed. I wasn't embarrassed. You get embarrassed when you discover you have a run in your stocking, or, your handkerchief is falling out of your pocket. Your squares, I think that's what you all call them now, is falling out of your pocket. That's embarrassment. I wasn't embarrassed. I was ashamed. And I said, I can't, nobody wants me. And so it was either commit suicide or write.
Wow.
That is where I was. Those were my only two options, because I had prayed and I had not grown to be tangible with my feelings to say, prayer is not enough, get up and do something, because the only thing I could do was leave, and I was scared to leave. And so it was, okay, you can do this. You can. No, I can't. Nobody wants me. And that writing was always my free space. Writing and reading and words have always saved me. And I got up and I started writing. And the more I wrote, the better I felt. And the better I felt, the more I typed. And the more I typed. And I said, wait a minute. If this is helping me and making me feel this much better to write it, I wonder if it will help other people to read it.
Right.
And that was how it was birthed. And I've been birthing books ever since. And it was cathartic, cleansing, and all of that. But for Dorma Jean McGruder, west side of Detroit, it saved my life.
Wow.
Had I not been able to get that book out, I was going to take those pills. And when I look back, if I had taken those pills, all of the people that I had spoken to that I will never meet would not have been helped. All of the people that have come to me, men and women and young girls and college students, would not have been helped. If I had not gotten that book out, the people that I have prayed for would not have been helped. It's not because Dorma is so great. It's because God allowed me to look and use what was in my hand and say, you can do this and you have to do this. And it also is because I did not look for an end game. I did not look for a purpose. I did not look to make New York Times and Amazon bestseller. Yes, as I said earlier, it would be wonderful to do that. But when I'm effective, those are the times that I come home crying with tears of joy and humility. When somebody walks up to me and says, I brought your book, and this changed my life. This changed my daughter's life, and I need some more because we have nieces who are going through this. I have a cousin in Finland, who's going through this. Maybe this will help her. Maybe this will help somebody else. So because I allowed my God to save my life through my writing, I was able to help somebody else. It literally, I had, if you go to the video, you'll see it. I had, because I was always plagued with migraines, I had my Tylenol 4, my Fiora set, and my Gaza set, and my sleeping pills on the table. And I was going to make a mean smoothie. This is it. This is it.
Wow.
I'm not going through any more of this. I couldn't take anymore because the hurt was so deep. It was beyond numb. The hurt was so deep, it was a raw, gaping wound. It was like someone had taken my skin and peeled it back and exposed my nerves and poured alcohol on my nerves. I couldn't take the pain anymore. And instead of taking those pills, that was when I cried out to God, forgive me and help me. And I felt at that moment, at that very second, I'm on the floor, balled up in a knot in the fetal position, which is the suicide position, according to psychologists and psychiatrists. I was balled up in a knot on the floor, and I said, okay, I can't take this anymore. I'm going to kill myself. And I begged God to help me. I said, God, please help me, please. And at that moment, I felt something, and I saw it in my heart and in my spirit, like a big black bowling ball pass out of my body. And for the first time in 10 years, I could breathe. And I said, okay, I'm not going to do it now. What can I do? And I got up and I crawled over to my word processor. That's how long ago it was. It wasn't a computer. We had word processors back then. And I turned it on, and I pulled up, and I started writing. And I started typing. And the more I typed, the more the burden and the shame and the pain flowed out of me. Yes, writing that book saved my life.
And again, as we were saying, it has saved other lives as well. Because I know this has happened to you already just based on the discussion. But a lot of times I will ask my authors in terms of have you ever had a reader come up to you and say, oh, my God, that was me. Oh, my God, how did you know? Oh, my God, I'm reading that, and I thought you had a camera in my house.
Yes. I've had fathers come and buy them for their daughters. And my question, I never invade my reader's privacy.
Right.
My question is, is she going through something? If you want her to talk to me one-on-one, and I give the disclaimer, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a counselor, but I've been there. If talking and venting will help, I will do that. No, she's not going through it. I am going to save her boyfriend's life. I want her to recognize the signs so that if he does or says something, I don't have to go kill him.
Right.
Well,
that's right.
Everybody does not have that. But it's so important that, again, because, see, I lost sight of my value. And when a cost versus value, that's what we have to weigh. Our cost is what we put outside, our clothes,
right.
Our haircut, our cologne, our shoes, our makeup, what we drive, where we live. That's our cost. Our value is what is inside. Our value is how much do you pray? How much do you think? How much do you listen? How much do you watch? Do you watch? I don't know what's current on TV in every sense, and I don't want to get you or me sued. But do you watch all of those things? We all need entertainment and a break at some point. That's okay. But is that all that you watch? And if that's all that you watch, that's all you're feeding your mind. And I can tell if that's all you watch because you can't have a decent conversation. So, and also that's going to bear fruit in your life, which is really non-existent. So what are you putting inside of you? And there's more than the Bible.
Right.
When we hear about what is going on politically, there are sites that do nothing but fact check and truth check and support, confirm, and deny these things. So do you check to see what's going on? Do you look and listen? Dick Gregory used to walk around wherever he went to speak. He always, when he was on the stage and when he got picked up from the airport, he always had two huge rolling suitcases. And they would ask him, "Are these your clothes?" He said, "No, that's my research."
Right.
So what do you read? What do you study? What do you think about? If you want to know what kinds of things cause certain things, what do you know about? And so what am I putting in Dorma? Is Dorma reading about accounting or reading a better way to publish a book?
Right.
Reading a better way to reach my readers? Is Dorma going to workshops to figure out? I had to cut off all of this stuff about $10,000 in 30 days. Because if I come on Mark's show, and if the book is good, and people think they can be helped, that's my $10,000 in 30 days, because I've been effectively helping people. Because at the end of every single one of those, and I'm not putting them down, but that wasn't my route, because I was so caught up in reading about it, I didn't have the opportunity to implement what God has already given me to do.
That's correct.
So it's not effective. Okay, Mark, you're a handsome gentleman, but you don't look like you're starving to death.
Thank you.
Okay. All right? You're not fat. You're not overweight. No disrespect to any of us in your audience who may be. But you look healthy and you look well. I'm going to presume that you don't live on ice cream and hot fudge sundaes and you don't live on, you may eat some every now and then, but that's not what you live on. So our bodies manifest that.
That's a correct assumption. You're right. No, you're absolutely right, because that is intentional and by design. And I've always been small, even as a child. But you're absolutely right. I'm very selective to a degree of what I put in my body, and the same thing with the mind. And the fact that you brought up, which I mean, and I'm jumping in here while we're at the point, because there is no doubt in the mind we need to read the Bible and we need to read Scripture. No, that's not debatable. That's a non-negotiable. But
that's a truth. That's not a fact.
Right. So, but there is nothing stopping us from going beyond that into other materials that will help advance us, because those are tools God provided. I remember I had to
I'm praying at the door in church. He does not want us to do that.
Those are like I remember a good friend of mine was sharing how she was supposed to have a surgery, and how people were, back to that quote you said about regardless of what people think of it, but so many people were getting in her head about don't have the surgery, because if you have the surgery, that means you don't have faith in God. It's like, now wait a minute. Doctors and medicine are tools that God put here. So
yes.
The fact that you're having your surgery, or the fact that you do what you need to do in the hospital, does not negate your faith in God. And I'm sharing that example to say reading additional materials to help yourself does not negate your faith or the fact that we read the Bible.
Do you know my CDs are printed directly on the CDs. The cases are beautiful. They're shrink wrapped. The inside, all of that is gorgeous. It's very tastefully done. I didn't have anybody to teach me, and I didn't have the money to pay the servicers to do it. So I sat down. This was before the internet. I sat down and figured out how to do it. I kept buying books, and when the internet became available, I went online and read about how to do it, and that's how I do it. When I got my first book, I didn't have the money to pay a printer to do it. I went out and bought a binding machine and read and stayed up all night and figured out how to do it. I don't have health insurance now because I'm not quote, punching a clock, and with the costs being as they are, what President Obama put in place is magnificent. But I'm one of those that's in between. When I applied for it and got it, they assigned me to a healthcare system that's 50 miles away from home. So that doesn't help me any. So my health challenge is high blood pressure. Well, I regulated diet to a certain degree, but still had these bad headaches. I started reading. So what happened? I discovered I have a juicer. What do? When I feel blood pressure going up and headache getting really bad, and it's not migraine, I'm able to know the difference, I juice beets, apples, carrots, celery, and ginger, and I can feel it coming down before I finish drinking it. I squeeze maybe 20, 30 lemons a week, and I drink a lot of hot lemon water without honey, some with honey, and my blood pressure is regulated. Had I not done that, I don't know what would have happened because it runs in my family. And when people say, oh, you have to, yeah, well, you know what? Reading is fundamental. We grew up in that era. And you've got to, I have had, and I'm sure, if you have been in church as long as I have, how many times, and maybe it wasn't intentional, have we heard ministers or preachers or speakers say something in the pulpit that wasn't necessarily a lie, but wasn't correct?
Correct. That's right.
And because we knew how to go back and fact check it. Okay, you didn't have to go back and tell them.
Right.
Wait a minute, that doesn't sound quite right.
Right.
Oh, okay, yeah, this is what it said. So God would never. Luke was a doctor. Come on, one of his physicians. If he didn't want that, he never would have included.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay.
But you're absolutely. I mean, the point is, right. God has given us common sense, and to the point where you feel like the only thing you can do is stay in church 24/7 or read the Bible 24/7 and not be able to do anything else that would support or where actually the Bible supports the other materials. It's not the other way around. The Bible supports the other materials. Like you just said, one of the 12 was a physician, so obviously he had a thing for doctors. So, but there are folks that get kind of caught up in that kind of mindset that, you know, I'm not saying, you know, like something is wrong with you, but you need to kind of understand to widen your scope in terms of it all works together. It all works together. So like you just said, okay, you know what? I have this, because I did the same thing. I was diagnosed a few years ago as pre-diabetic, and diabetes runs in my mom, my grandmother, my aunt, so far all the way up down the line. I had no idea because I watched my mom for like 30, 40 years do her insulin thing, and she was fine. I thought, okay, you know. Well, when the doctor pre-diagnosed me, I now started doing some research on it and had no idea diabetes was as destructive as it was. And so now because of that reading, like you were talking about small, and I've always been small anyway, but now my diet really changed. Cut sugar out, exercised more because I always kind of exercised, but I made sure I upped that. So I'm doing things now based on research and reading.
Basic things.
Yes. And the same goes with, like you say, being a radio show host or being an author, being a writer, whatever. You do what you do to make your game better. Back to the excellence thing again. Back to what you were talking in the beginning of the interview about excellence.
Yes. I have had, I've gone to doctor's offices, I've gone to restaurants, I've gone to many places of business, and maybe the service was really, really good. I didn't know because I turned around and walked out. I was going into a restaurant. I won't say the name of it, but I was going into a restaurant. It was a chain restaurant, and it wasn't fast food. The doors were so nasty, and the floors were so nasty going in. I said, you know what? I really don't want to know what the kitchen looks like.
Right. That's right.
So I could, at bare minimum, I got some peanut butter and jelly as crackers, so I'm not going to be hungry.
I know that's
but
right.
At presentation, it means so much.
Yes, it does.
And so often people have been indoctrinated for generations into saying this, and sometimes it is easier for them. Well, easy isn't always good.
Right.
When I bake a pound cake, I have to make sure everything is room temperature, and I have to make sure that everything is beaten properly and separated properly. I always start with 2 dozen eggs because I only use 1 dozen. But when I crack my eggs, I crack each egg in a cup, and I learned that the hard way. It was midnight one night. I was making a pound cake for work, And I got to that 11th egg, and I just dumped it in the batter, and I couldn't catch it, and it was a rotten egg. I had to throw that whole bowl of batter away, and I had to get up and go back to Meijer, which was open 24 hours, and buy all of my ingredients all over again and come home. And that from that day forward, I cracked my eggs one at a time.
I know that's right.
Because that cake had to be excellent. So the person I was making it for was one of the people at work who I really thought a lot of, and I was just being nice, saying, hey, look, you really work around here really, really hard, and I just want you to know I appreciate you. He was dead in a month, heart attack, okay? So I was able to do something just to let him know I appreciated him.
That's right.
No sickness, no nothing. So, suppose that cake had not been my best. I would have been able to say, I wish I had done a better job with that. You can't always say that. And sometimes you only get one chance.
That's right.
Whenever anyone reads one of my books, when they go to my website, when they download a prayer, some of them are complimentary or free. Most of them are for sale because we have to make a living. And Paul said, if whatever you're doing, you ought to get paid for. And I've put a lot of time and effort into it, and God blessed me to do it. I want people to walk away saying, you know what, that was good, that was value, that was important to me, and it helped, and it made a difference. And if it is making a difference, then I know that I've done what God wanted me to do. That is priceless. You cannot buy that. When Jesus was here, he was only preaching for 3 years. And the Bible says that if they put the earth could not contain the volumes of all of the things that he did. What does that mean? That means that he never stopped, and that means that he gave his best. That's the pattern that we have to follow. I remember when President Obama was running the first time, and Senator McCain, God rest his soul, there was a Senate vote that was coming up, and it was big. And they suggested President Obama stop campaigning and come back to Washington, vote, and stay there for a few days to kind of get things in place. And he refused. He did go back to vote, but he did not stop campaigning. I said, why aren't you stopping complaining? He said, no one wants a leader that can only do one thing at a time well.
All right now.
And when Mark gets off the air, Mark is a fraternity brother. Mark is an Air Force veteran. Mark is a radio host. Mark is doing everything well. Now, when we hang up, yes, I'm going to meet with some people to do some ghostwriting, and then I'm coming home to set up a GoFundMe page for an attorney who's having a crisis. I am going to do some other things that I have to do, and I have to do it all. I'm not perfect, but I have to give it my best.
Absolutely.
Because that's what we want. And if I give my best, that's when you get the boxes of seafood. When you get down to peanut butter and jelly, you get the best. You don't get a pound of hamburger.
That's correct. And I tell you what, now, believe it or not, a lot of my guests, because the interview times usually run about this long, maybe a little bit shorter, sometimes it's very much shorter. But a lot of my guests will say, oh, my God, what are we going to talk about for an hour? And a lot of times we wind up talking a good hour and a half, and that's what has happened this morning. And so we've come down to the end of our interview. Let me tell you what I do at the end. This is your opportunity to promote. And I've turned the microphone off, and you have the opportunity to promote your websites, your books, your services, anything that you do that you'd like the audience to know and contact you about, websites, reach numbers, whatever. The only thing you can't say is a dollar amount, because at that point they can negotiate that with you once they contact you. So anything short of a dollar amount, this is your time to shout out, to promote, to let folks know how they can get in touch with you. And it has been a joy to speak with you. Just when the time flew by, I looked up the clock and said 8:30. I said, oh, my goodness. So it's about, what, 7:30 your time? Or you're in Detroit. That's East time, that's Central.
We're in the same time zone.
So we're in the same time zone. So, okay, so it's 8:30 there, too, then. So, okay, so at this point, like I said, I'm going to shut the mic off, and you're able to promote. You have a good 2 to 3. 2 to 3 minutes.
Okay.
All right, there you go. It's yours.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for listening. My website is www.dormamcgruder.com, DormaMcGruder.com. My phone number, which I actually answer, is 313-282-3382. I am on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. I do ghostwriting. I self-publish books. I publish books for other people. I do prayers on CD and MP3. And I am here to serve you. I am here to help. You are invited to call me, write me, email. Email is dorma@dormamcgruder.com. And thank you for listening to Mark's show. He's doing a magnificent job of seeing to it that we have what we need. Every one of you, I want you to take away that you are God's best. You are 28 karat gold, and that you deserve the best from life, and you deserve to give us your best. And your best doesn't have to be super expensive, but it has to be your best. That's what I try to do. That is what Mark does. And that's what you have to do for you. Again, DormaMcGruder.com, Dorma@DormaMcGruder.com, 313-282-3382. I would love to hear from you, to know what you think about the show, what you think about my book. It's on Kindle this month for 99 cents in honor of Domestic Violence Month. And I just want all of you to know I love you and thank you so much for taking your time to listen to what we have to say, because we're here to serve and want to know that we have served you and hopefully have served you a wonderful meal. Thank you.
Well, Dorma, I thank you for rising early. I'm glad you're in the same time zone, because sometimes I have guests on the West Coast and they're like at 3 or 4 hours behind me. And then every now and again I get somebody from overseas. Right. And I see some folks, I get some folks from overseas who are actually 5 or 6 hours ahead of us. So it's like afternoon their time. But for those of us in this time, I'm up on Saturday mornings. I get up the earliest to come here to make sure I'm in the studio, by 5:30 to get set up for the 6 o'clock show. So I thank all of my guests who rise early, because the show is live. As I said, I do record it, and then I put it up on my YouTube channel. I send you a copy of all the links, and you can share them in any manner you choose. And it's been a fascinating and inspirational interview. It was great talking with you. It was inspiring for sure, because, I come here sometimes tired as heck when I come into the studio. But by the time I leave here, I am so energized between the people that I speak with and the music that it carries me through the rest of my Saturday and into the weekend and into the new week.
That's good. Well, I'm usually up at 4 praying, because my thought is, if I'm up that early, God doesn't have anybody else to listen to. Because he knows I am coming.
I know that's right. Well, I tell you what, you have a wonderfully blessed day, weekend, week, and the rest of your time. All right, and we'll be in touch.
Yes.